All right. It's another one of these the Homeric Rhapsody things. We're doing this story of Achilles raiding the city of Thebe, Eëtion's Thebe, and Patroclus took the Myrmidons, most of the Myrmidons, and brought them to a different battle, which I think might be interesting to approach this time. So let's see if we can do something with that. Here we go. And thus had that jest of Eëtion, king of Thebe, been accomplished, that his friend, with whom he had spent many an hour tossing the knuckle bones, that he had grown almost to love over the past year, had he given some back for this man who shared with him now his wife, that queen, Amazon of the Thebans. And meanwhile, in Olympus, the great slayer of Argus, Hermes, was casting dice of his own, playing with Hephaestus, that lord of the firebrand, and the both of them sat as they played, and they thought to themselves of a small game of their own. And Hermes spoke up and said to that lord of the tongs and the hammer and the hammer again, and he said, "Great Lord Vulcan, I have it in mind to allow these Myrmidons who approach from the side, they be attacking against those Thracians and Cilicians that come against them. They, I think, will outdo those Cretans of Idomeneus, who has himself a force seeming greater, but that I deem will be outshone by Patroclus and his leadership." And Hephaestus said to him, "That is something I would like to see, for Idomeneus has spent all his long years as the leader of Crete on that hard island of the rough seas surrounding, and he has won himself many a battle, him and his lineage going all the way back to that leader of Crete, the great Minos, and the keeper of the beast below. Patroclus' lineage is but weak. Menetius and those before him were not of great account, not like that of Idomeneus. I will take this wager, O Argus Slayer. Though you have many wiles, I think not that this will prove to your liking." And thus the two of these great gods, both of whom favored the Achaeans and their cause, had among themselves a side bet, and they cast their lots with the knuckle bones created that were hewn from that fat sent up to heaven and the bones that burned around them, a great golden calf that had been offered up as sacrifice by Agamemnon and his men at Aulis, which, having been given to Artemis, was handed over to Hermes and Hephaestus, who treasured the bones therein, for she had no use for them, these Achaeans favoring not the Achaeans, but the Trojans. And so they had this great, valuable object that they used for their pleasure, which, if it were in the markets of men, would be worth the value of over 100 oxen. but no one can put a price on those things that the gods use. The least trifle that they have among them is worth more than many a hoard of the greatest kings of men. And so these two, while playing their game, looked down from that great mountain to see the fields as Patroclus's myrmidons approached. And they looked around them, for though both of them were in a wager against the other, the two of them wanted to ensure that the Achaeans came out the victors in this encounter. And so they spied around the field for signs of Aphrodite, who might be acting her wiles upon some hapless Thracian, or Artemis with her bow, some archer coming from the forest, or that lord of light who might be inspiring only now some Trojan or Thracian with his invincible power. And so, down on the battlefield, Patroclus, who had been already fighting, and Idomeneus alongside of him, the two of them performing great deeds along with their marvelous hosts, continued the slaughter, and two of the greatest gods in Olympus cheered them on. All right, an interesting interlude. I actually didn't, I'm sure you could tell, I didn't know what I was going to do when I said the scene was going up to Olympus. I leaped off that ledge before I had a plan for it. But I kind of ended up coming up with a sort of interesting subplot where I think it's really interesting about the way that the Iliad works, where the only stuff that's happening is not just related to the war. Like, the gods have other stuff they're thinking about. There's a part where Zeus, in the middle of the most intense part of the fighting, like, goes away and just visits another civilization for a while and just hopes that trusts that no god is going to interfere in his plans. And a lot of the time, there's like 12 days at the beginning of the story where the gods are just gone. They're visiting the Ethiopians. And there's parts where like gods have struggles with each other. But there's not a lot of stuff where gods on the same team, the ones who are rooting for the Achaeans or rooting for the Trojans, are opposed to each other. And I thought it would be kind of cool if there was like something that created a little rivalry between gods on the same team. So that was the idea behind that. And I thought it was kind of cool to have this little piece about the golden calf that was sacrificed at Atlas, which I kind of screwed up because it wouldn't have been a calf, I don't think. I want to say it wouldn't have been. Probably we would say it was the deer that in some versions of the story Iphigenia is replaced with. But it works either way. It doesn't have to be Atlas anyway. Most people think that Homer actually is retconning out the Iphigenia at Atlas story because he never mentions her. And there's also potentially a part where he's saying that she's still alive, that she's one of Agamemnon's daughters that he's offering to Achilles later in the story. But all this is beside the point. I think that was an interesting interlude, and it's cool to, now that we would jump to Patroclus's, side story here and see what happens with him. I kind of have a rough idea of what I want to do with, like, the way that he would arrive into the part with Achilles, which we haven't even come back to Achilles yet, so it will be pretty far off. But I'm interested to kind of cut between these two stories, similar to how the Iliad cuts between a lot of different stuff. Cool, so that was not so bad, and we'll keep going with it from there.